All right, so today we're diving into something really cool. A powerful alchemical symbol for personal transformation, the black dragon. We're going to unpack what this ancient metaphor is all about and how it represents this incredible journey of turning our own inner chaos into a real source of change.
So, let's just start with the one question that this whole process is built around. What happens when the ego takes all that aggressive energy it usually points out at the world and turns it back on itself? This is the fundamental shift we're going to explore today.
Okay, so to kick this whole thing off, we have to understand our starting point. And in alchemy, that's symbolized by the sleeping black dragon.
So, what is this dragon, really? Well, in alchemy, it's the raw, unrefined stuff of our own psyche, what they call the prima materia. You can think of it as the ego in its most basic, instinctive, and frankly confused state. This is ground zero. This is where the work begins. And the alchemists got super specific about this. They call this state Saturnian Mercury. Now, Saturnian means heavy, cold, dark, opaque, and Mercury represents a state of consciousness. So you put them together, and you get this dense, messy, psychic sludge. It's a big jumble of our shadow and all our unconscious drives. And here's the real kicker. It's already self-destructive, but it has no idea. It's just running on pure instinct. And this is a really important thing to get. Right now, nothing is actually happening. There's no growth, there's no work being done. The dragon is just dormant. It's like a stagnant pool of potential, totally asleep, just waiting for something to come along and wake it up.
So what is it that wakes the dragon? Well, that brings us to the second stage of our journey, igniting the catalyst for change, which the alchemists called the secret fire.
Now, this is a huge distinction we have to make. The secret fire isn't some external force. It's not a physical flame you apply from the outside. No, this is something that happens entirely on the inside. It's the conscious choice to finally turn your attention inward. It's the willingness to face discomfort, what you could call voluntary suffering, and to do it with a clear ethical intention. It's the decision to finally look. And here's the really brilliant part. This internal fire doesn't try to attack the dragon. It's way smarter than that. Its function is to simply force the dragon to wake up and turn its own destructive nature inward. So it starts to consume itself, but for the very first time, it's a conscious act. And what happens next is the real turning point of this whole process. The dragon goes through this fundamental change in its very nature. It becomes the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. This moment is captured perfectly by that classic alchemical saying, the poison becomes the medicine. The very thing that was the problem, the dragon's aggressive, self-consuming nature, now becomes the solution. It's the key to its own transformation. So how does this actually work? What does it look like? Well, first, the ego stops projecting all its problems and conflicts onto the outside world. Then it turns that same energy inward, symbolically biting its own tail. And finally, it begins to actively, consciously consume itself. This is a deliberate process of dissolving from the inside out. The symbolism here is just so powerful. I mean, what does it really mean to consume yourself? Well, it means the ego itself becomes the tool that dissolves the ego. Desire turns on itself and starts to burn up desire. The very structure of your identity literally begins to feed on itself, breaking down its own fixed form. But we have to be super clear here. This stage, this messy Ouroboros phase, it's not the final goal. This isn't purification yet. This is a necessary breakdown, a process of auto-dissolution. It's like the demolition phase of a renovation. The old, rigid structures are being torn down, but the new thing hasn't been built yet. So, what comes after all of that intense self-consumption? This is where the magic of alchemy really starts to show itself, as we move from the stage of black to the stage of white. See, after the dragon has done its work, a new substance is left behind. The alchemists called this white mercury or lunar mercury, and it's not a solid fixed thing. It's a purified, fluid, flowing consciousness. All the old rigid attachments and fixations of the ego have collapsed, leaving this new potential in their place. So what does this new state actually feel like? Well, those rigid structures of the ego, they're gone. And in their place, there's a new sense of fluidity.
Your tight grip on memory and identity starts to loosen up. Your consciousness becomes like a perfectly still pool of water. It's reflective, it's receptive, and it's totally open to the world of imagination. But, and this is a really, really important nuance, this state isn't the final form. While this white mercury is pure and reflective, it's also described as being unstable. And here's the P. It can reflect light, kind of like how the moon reflects the light of the sun, but it does not generate its own light. It's a passive kind of purity, not an active, radiating one. Okay, so let's pull all of these pieces together and look at the entire transformation in one single, concise, alchemical summary. This one sentence, right here, captures the whole journey. The black dragon, our inert, unconscious ego, becomes the Ouroboros when it turns its own violence inward. Fueled by that secret fire of our own conscious attention, it consumes itself and liquefies, or dissolves, into the pure, reflective state of white mercury. It's a complete journey, from confusion to dissolution to reflection. And that leaves us with one last massive question. Okay, so we've reached this beautiful state of purified, receptive consciousness. But if this new state only reflects light, like the moon, what's the next step in the process? How does it learn to generate its own light, like the sun? Well, that's a question for another time. Thanks for joining me on this one.